You have been lied to your entire life, not by enemies or strangers, but often by the very people who loved you, because they were taught the same belief. You were told that if you worked harder, achieved more, and became more successful, happiness would eventually find you, so you kept striving and pushing forward. Yet on quiet nights, when distractions fade and the world becomes silent, a familiar question returns to your mind. Is this really enough? That question is not weakness. It is the most honest voice within you, showing you that happiness was never meant to be chased the way you were taught. The ancient masters of the East understood this truth long before the modern world turned achievement into a race without an ending. Through silence and deep awareness, they discovered that happiness is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is already present in this breath, in this moment, in the simple experience of being alive. Today, you will learn 7 timeless practices that can help you stop running and finally see the peace that has been quietly waiting for you all along. Stay until the final lesson, because it reveals the understanding that can change the way you experience your entire life. 1. Stop fixing what isn't broken. Every morning, even before your body is fully awake, your mind quietly begins scanning your life like a machine searching for errors. It looks for what is missing, what is wrong, what must be improved, and what might go badly today. Without realizing it, you start the day feeling pressured, tense, and dissatisfied, as if something needs to be fixed immediately. Buddhism describes this inner restlessness as dukkha, a deep sense of unease that does not always come from real problems, but from the mind's habit of constantly judging and comparing. Many of the burdens people carry are not caused by life itself, but by the stories they repeat in their thoughts about what life should be. A simple practice can begin to change this pattern. When you wake up tomorrow, before touching your phone or thinking about responsibilities, sit quietly for 1 minute. Feel your breath moving in and out. Notice the stillness around you, and recognize that in this exact moment you are safe and alive. This short pause may seem insignificant, but it gently interrupts the cycle of worry and self-criticism. When you stop treating every morning like an inspection of your failures and instead allow the day to unfold naturally, you begin to notice that many things in your life are already working. There is beauty in ordinary moments, but the restless mind often overlooks it. True peace starts when you stop trying to repair everything and learn to accept that, right now, much of your life is already enough. 2. Let pain pass through you. Don't become it. One of the most important lessons Buddhism teaches is that you are not your emotions, even though they often feel overwhelming and permanent. When sadness, anger, fear, or disappointment appears, most people immediately identify with it and begin to believe that this feeling defines who they are in that moment. The mind creates thoughts like, "I am broken," "My life is falling apart," or "This pain will never end," and slowly the emotion becomes heavier because it is being held tightly. However, emotions are not solid objects that stay forever. They are temporary experiences that move through the mind and body like changing weather in the sky. Buddhism calls this truth anicca, the law of impermanence, which reminds us that everything that arises will eventually fade. When you understand this deeply, you stop fighting your emotions and also stop drowning in them. The next time a difficult feeling appears, try something simple. Instead of reacting immediately or distracting yourself, take a slow breath and silently remind yourself, "This will pass." Then allow yourself to feel the sensation without judging it or trying to push it away. Imagine the emotion as a wave that rises, reaches its peak, and then naturally falls back into stillness. By giving emotions space to move instead of turning them into lifelong identities, you reduce unnecessary suffering and build inner strength. Pain becomes a visitor rather than a permanent resident, and you begin to experience life with more calmness and clarity. 3. Master the art of giving without expecting. Many people believe they are kind and generous, yet deep inside their giving is often connected to hidden expectations. They help others, offer support, or show love, while quietly hoping for appreciation, recognition, or the same effort in return. When these expectations are not fulfilled, disappointment slowly turns into frustration, and frustration can grow into resentment. Buddhism teaches that true generosity, known as dana, is very different from this emotional transaction. Real giving comes from a place of inner completeness, not from a desire to control outcomes or receive validation. When you give freely, without keeping mental records of who owes you something, you experience a sense of lightness and freedom that cannot be created through external rewards. This does not mean you should allow others to misuse your kindness, but it means your peace should not depend on how people respond. A simple practice can help you understand this. Try doing one small act of kindness today without telling anyone and without waiting for thanks. It could be helping someone quietly, sharing useful advice, or making someone's day easier in a way that goes unnoticed. Afterward, observe how you feel. Instead of emptiness, you will often notice a calm satisfaction, as if your heart has become a little more open. This feeling is not caused by praise, but by the act of giving itself. When generosity becomes a natural expression rather than a negotiation, you stop feeling emotionally drained and begin to experience a deeper, more stable happiness that comes from within. 4. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. In today's world, silence has become something many people try to escape from without even realizing it. The moment there is a quiet space, the hand automatically reaches for the phone, music starts playing in the background, or the mind looks for some form of distraction. This constant noise creates the illusion that we are staying productive or entertained, but in reality, it often prevents us from facing our own inner world. Buddhism teaches that silence is not something to fear, it is a doorway to understanding. When external sounds fade, the deeper layers of the mind begin to reveal themselves. Thoughts that were previously hidden under busyness start to surface. Emotions that were ignored begin to seek attention. And for the first time in a long time, you are left alone with your true self. This can feel uncomfortable at first, because most people are not trained to sit with their own thoughts without reacting to them. The mind may create excuses, reminding you of tasks, responsibilities, or worries, but this restlessness is simply a habit that has been strengthened over time. The ancient masters understood that clarity does not come from constant activity, but from still observation. When you sit quietly, even for a few minutes, you begin to notice how quickly thoughts appear and disappear, how emotions rise and fall, and how awareness itself remains steady beneath all of this movement. Silence becomes like a mirror, reflecting the patterns of your mind without judgment. A simple practice can help you experience this. Choose a quiet place and sit comfortably without trying to force any special state. Let your breathing be natural and allow thoughts to pass without chasing them. At first, the mind may feel louder than ever, but if you remain patient, a subtle calmness begins to grow. You may notice small details that were always present but never truly seen, such as the rhythm of your breath, the sensation of stillness in your body, or the peacefulness of simply existing without doing anything. Over time, silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling supportive, like a space where you can rest and understand yourself more clearly. When you regularly give yourself moments of quiet awareness, your reactions to life begin to change. You become less impulsive, more thoughtful, and more grounded in your responses. Problems that once felt overwhelming may start to look manageable, and emotional storms lose some of their intensity because you are no longer immediately swept away by them. Silence does not remove challenges from life, but it strengthens your ability to face them with wisdom rather than panic. In this stillness, you reconnect with a deeper part of yourself that is not defined by success, failure, or comparison. This is why the masters valued silence so highly. It was not an escape from life, but a way to experience life more truthfully. When you learn to sit in silence without fear, you discover that many of the answers you have been searching for were always within you, waiting for a quiet moment to be heard. 5. Detach from the outcome, stay devoted to the process. A large part of human suffering does not come from failure itself, but from the fear of failure and the obsession with results. From a very young age, people are conditioned to measure their worth through outcomes. They are praised for winning, achieving, performing, and being ahead of others. And slowly this creates a deep belief that life only has value when it produces visible success. Because of this conditioning, whenever a person begins a new journey, whether it is related to career, relationships, personal growth, or creativity, their attention quickly shifts away from the present effort and becomes fixed on the future reward. The mind begins to calculate timelines, compare progress, and imagine different scenarios of success or disappointment. This constant mental movement pulls awareness out of the present moment, turning what could be a meaningful process into a stressful race. Even activities that once felt joyful start to feel heavy because they are no longer experienced as expressions of growth, but as tests that must be passed. Buddhism offers a different perspective that can bring profound relief. It teaches that peace does not come from controlling outcomes, but from learning to participate fully in the actions that are available right now. The teaching of equanimity encourages emotional balance regardless of how events unfold. This balance does not mean indifference or lack of ambition. Instead, it represents a deep understanding that results are influenced by countless factors beyond personal control. Weather changes, circumstances shift, other people make decisions, and time unfolds in unpredictable ways. When you attach your happiness only to a specific outcome, you place your inner stability in the hands of uncertainty. However, when you devote yourself sincerely to the process, you anchor your sense of fulfillment in something that is always accessible, your own effort. Imagine the simple act of planting a seed. You prepare the soil, water it regularly, and ensure it receives enough sunlight. Yet no matter how much you wish for immediate growth, the seed follows its own rhythm. If you dig it up every day to check whether it is developing, you disrupt the very process you are trying to support. In the same way, constant doubt and impatience disturb the natural flow of personal development. Many people give up not because they lack potential, but because they become emotionally exhausted by their attachment to results. They interpret slow progress as failure and lose faith in their journey. This is why learning to stay committed to consistent action without obsessing over immediate rewards is such a powerful transformation. A practical exercise can help you experience this shift. Choose one area where you feel anxious about progress. It could be building a skill, improving health, studying for an exam, or working toward financial stability. Instead of measuring success by external milestones for a certain period of time, focus entirely on daily participation. Create a simple routine and follow it with sincerity. At the end of each day, reflect not on whether you are closer to the final goal, but on whether you showed up with honesty and patience. This practice gradually retrains the mind to value effort itself as a form of success. Over time, this mindset reduces fear because your motivation becomes internal rather than dependent on validation from others or quick achievements. The wisdom of this approach lies in recognizing that meaningful growth often happens quietly and invisibly. Just as roots expand beneath the surface before a tree becomes tall, inner strength develops long before visible results appear. When you detach from outcomes, you allow yourself to experience life more fully. You begin to notice the small improvements that were previously ignored, such as increased discipline, deeper understanding, or greater emotional resilience. These subtle changes build a strong foundation for lasting success. Furthermore, detachment from results protects your peace during difficult periods. When challenges arise, you are less likely to feel defeated because your focus remains on what can still be done in the present moment. The masters understood that true freedom comes not from controlling the future, but from trusting the sincerity of one's actions. When effort becomes an expression of self-respect rather than a desperate attempt to secure approval, life gains a different quality. Work feels lighter, persistence becomes natural, and setbacks are seen as part of the journey rather than proof of inadequacy. In this steady devotion to the process, a deeper form of happiness emerges, one that is grounded in participation rather than achievement. You begin to walk your path with patience and confidence, knowing that while the timing of results may be uncertain, the value of sincere effort is never wasted. This understanding transforms ambition into a calm and purposeful movement forward, allowing you to grow without losing your inner peace. 6. Forgive not for them, but for yourself. There are memories that live quietly inside you, memories that return without invitation and bring with them a familiar heaviness. Sometimes it is a face you once trusted, a voice that once felt safe, or a moment that changed the way you see the world. You may have learned to move forward, to continue your responsibilities, to smile when necessary, yet somewhere within, a part of you still carries the weight of what happened. Many people believe that holding on to resentment is a form of strength, a way to protect themselves from being hurt again. They think that by remembering the wound, they remain alert, guarded, and in control. However, Buddhism teaches a deeper truth, one that is not always easy to accept, but has the power to transform the heart. The truth is that unprocessed anger does not create protection, it creates imprisonment. When you hold tightly to past pain, you keep reliving the same emotional moment, allowing it to shape your present thoughts, your future choices, and your sense of identity. Forgiveness in this understanding is not about approving harmful actions or pretending that suffering did not occur. It is about recognizing that carrying emotional poison harms the one who carries it. The Buddha compared resentment to drinking poison while expecting another person to suffer from its effects. This teaching highlights how the mind becomes trapped in cycles of blame and replay. Each time you revisit the story of what someone did, your body reacts as if the event is happening again. The heart tightens, the breath becomes shallow, and the nervous system prepares for a threat that is no longer present. Over time, this repeated stress can influence not only mental peace, but also physical well-being. Forgiveness interrupts this cycle by shifting attention away from punishment and toward healing. Many people resist forgiveness because they believe it requires forgetting or reconnecting with the person who caused harm. In reality, forgiveness is an internal decision that has nothing to do with external relationships. It does not demand reconciliation, nor does it require trust. It simply means choosing not to let past actions define your emotional landscape forever. When you forgive, you are not saying that what happened was acceptable. You are saying that your peace is too valuable to remain tied to a memory that cannot be changed. This realization often unfolds gradually. At first, the idea of forgiveness may feel distant or even unfair. The mind may argue that anger is justified, that letting go would make you vulnerable or weak. Yet with gentle awareness, you begin to see that holding on requires constant energy, while releasing creates space for renewal. A practical way to begin this process is through honest reflection. Find a quiet moment and allow yourself to acknowledge the pain without judgment. Instead of suppressing it or exaggerating it, simply observe it as a part of your experience. You may notice how the memory has influenced your beliefs about trust, love, or self-worth. You may also recognize that clinging to resentment has not brought the closure you hoped for. From this place of awareness, forgiveness becomes less about the other person and more about reclaiming ownership of your inner world. Some people find it helpful to write their thoughts in a private journal or to express their feelings through symbolic actions such as tearing a piece of paper or releasing it into flowing water. These gestures do not erase the past, but they signal a willingness to move forward. Forgiveness is rarely a single moment of transformation. It is often a gradual softening of resistance. You may forgive partially and then feel the pain return, requiring patience and compassion toward yourself. Buddhism encourages this compassionate approach, reminding us that the heart heals in its own time. Meditation practices that focus on loving kindness can also support this journey. By silently repeating phrases that wish well-being for yourself and others, you cultivate a mindset that reduces hostility and opens the possibility of understanding. Over time, this gentle discipline weakens the grip of resentment and strengthens emotional resilience. Another important aspect of forgiveness is recognizing the shared human tendency toward imperfection. People act out of fear, ignorance, or unresolved suffering, often without fully understanding the consequences of their behavior. This does not excuse harmful actions, but it provides context that can ease rigid judgments. When you see that everyone is navigating their own inner struggles, the desire for revenge or prolonged anger may begin to dissolve. Compassion arises not as approval, but as clarity about the complexity of human experience. This clarity allows you to step out of the role of victim and into the role of conscious participant in your own healing. As forgiveness deepens, subtle changes occur within your daily life. Situations that once triggered intense emotional reactions may feel less overwhelming. You might notice more patience in conversations, greater openness to new relationships, and a renewed ability to trust your own judgment. These shifts are signs that the heart is becoming lighter. Energy that was previously consumed by replaying painful memories becomes available for creativity, growth, and meaningful connection. You begin to understand that forgiveness is not a gift you give to someone else, it is a gift you give to yourself, a declaration that your future will not be controlled by past wounds. Ultimately, the practice of forgiveness aligns with the broader Buddhist path of liberation from suffering. By releasing attachment to anger, you reduce the mental clutter that obscures inner peace. You create conditions for wisdom to emerge, allowing you to respond to life with calmness rather than reactivity. This transformation does not require dramatic gestures or sudden enlightenment. It begins with small, sincere intentions to let go, repeated gently over time. Each moment you choose understanding over bitterness, you move closer to freedom. In this way, forgiveness becomes not only a personal healing process, but also a contribution to the well-being of the world around you. When you carry less resentment, your interactions become more harmonious, and your presence brings comfort rather than tension. Others may feel inspired by your example, creating a ripple effect of compassion that extends beyond individual relationships. Through forgiveness, you discover that peace is not dependent on the behavior of others, but on the quality of awareness you cultivate within yourself. This realization marks a profound shift from living in reaction to living with intention. Forgiveness does not erase history, but it transforms its influence. It allows memories to exist without dominating your present experience. You learn to remember without reliving, to acknowledge without becoming trapped. With time, the emotional charge associated with past events diminishes, leaving behind wisdom instead of pain. This wisdom guides future choices, helping you set healthy boundaries while maintaining an open heart. The journey toward forgiveness may be challenging, yet it leads to a state of inner spaciousness where resentment no longer dictates your emotional climate. When you finally understand forgiveness in this deeper sense, you recognize it as an act of courage and self-respect. It is the moment you decide that your peace matters more than your pride, that your healing is more important than holding on to a story of injustice. In choosing to forgive, you step out of the shadow of the past and into the light of present awareness. This step, repeated again and again, gradually transforms your relationship with suffering and reveals a path toward genuine happiness that is not dependent on external circumstances. 7. Happiness is not found, it is chosen. There is a quiet belief that shapes the lives of most people, often without them ever noticing it. This belief says that happiness is something that will arrive later, after certain conditions are met, after problems are solved, after goals are achieved, after life finally becomes stable and predictable. Because of this belief, many individuals spend years postponing their own peace. They wake up each day with the feeling that something important is still missing, that contentment is always just one more step away. Buddhism offers a radically different understanding. It teaches that happiness is not a destination waiting in the future, but a way of relating to the present moment. It is not discovered by accident or granted by external success. It is cultivated through awareness, intention, and repeated practice. This shift in perspective changes everything, because it moves the source of fulfillment from outside circumstances to the quality of one's own mind. From childhood, people are taught to associate happiness with achievement. Good grades lead to praise, professional success leads to recognition, and social approval leads to a sense of belonging. Over time, the mind learns to measure its worth through comparison and outcome. While ambition and effort can be meaningful, they can also create a subtle dependency on results. When expectations are met, there is temporary satisfaction. When they are not, disappointment arises. This cycle keeps happiness tied to unpredictable events, making it fragile and inconsistent. Buddhist wisdom encourages a more stable foundation by focusing on inner training rather than outer validation. It suggests that the mind can learn to experience peace even when circumstances are imperfect, because peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of understanding. The teachings of mindfulness illustrate how happiness becomes a conscious choice. Mindfulness invites you to pay attention to what is happening right now without immediately labeling it as good or bad. This simple awareness reduces the tendency to react impulsively or judge experiences harshly. For example, when you notice the sensation of breathing, the warmth of sunlight, or the sound of rain, you reconnect with the direct reality of being alive. These moments may seem ordinary, yet they hold a quiet richness that is often overlooked. By practicing presence, you train your mind to appreciate life as it unfolds, rather than constantly wishing for something different. This appreciation does not eliminate difficulties, but it changes how you respond to them. Choosing happiness also involves accepting the natural fluctuations of life. Joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and criticism are part of the human experience. Buddhism describes this as the wheel of change, a reminder that no emotional state remains forever. When you understand this truth deeply, you stop clinging desperately to pleasant moments and resisting painful ones. Instead, you develop a balanced attitude that allows you to move through life with resilience. This balance is not emotional numbness, but a steady openness that welcomes each experience as an opportunity to learn. Over time, such openness reduces fear because you no longer depend on controlling every outcome to feel secure. Another important aspect of choosing happiness is cultivating gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention away from what is lacking and toward what is already present. Many people overlook the simple gifts that support their daily lives, such as the ability to walk, communicate, or share time with others. By consciously acknowledging these blessings, you strengthen positive mental habits. Neuroscience supports this insight, showing that repeated focus on appreciative thoughts can reshape neural pathways, making optimism more natural. Buddhism recognized this long before modern science, emphasizing that the mind becomes what it repeatedly practices. When you practice gratitude, kindness, and patience, you gradually create an inner environment where happiness can grow. The decision to choose happiness does not mean ignoring injustice or pretending that pain does not exist. It means recognizing that your response to circumstances is a powerful factor in shaping your experience. For instance, two individuals may face the same challenge, yet one becomes consumed by bitterness, while the other finds motivation to adapt and learn. The difference lies in perspective and mental discipline. Buddhist teachings encourage reflection on the impermanent nature of difficulties, reminding practitioners that even intense suffering can become a source of wisdom. By reframing obstacles as opportunities for growth, you transform adversity into a teacher rather than an enemy. Practical exercises can help integrate this understanding into daily life. One approach is to set a gentle intention each morning to notice moments of calm or contentment. These moments might occur during a conversation, while completing a task, or simply while resting. By recognizing them consciously, you reinforce the habit of finding happiness in small experiences. Another practice involves compassionate self-talk. Instead of criticizing yourself for mistakes, you offer understanding and encouragement, acknowledging that learning is a gradual process. This compassionate attitude reduces internal conflict and supports emotional stability. Relationships also play a role in the choice of happiness. When interactions are guided by empathy and respect, they create an atmosphere of mutual support. Buddhism highlights the value of right speech and right action, suggesting that harmonious communication contributes to collective well-being. By choosing words that uplift rather than harm, you influence not only your own mood, but also the emotional climate around you. Over time, such choices foster deeper connections and a sense of belonging that strengthens happiness. The path of choosing happiness is not always easy, because the mind tends to revert to familiar patterns of worry or dissatisfaction. This is why consistency is essential. Just as physical strength develops through regular exercise, mental clarity grows through repeated mindful effort. Meditation, reflection, and ethical living serve as tools for this training. They gradually reduce impulsive reactions and increase awareness of subtle emotional shifts. With patience, you begin to notice that contentment arises more frequently and lasts longer, even in the face of uncertainty. Ultimately, choosing happiness is an act of responsibility. It acknowledges that while you cannot control every event, you can influence the way you meet each moment. This realization empowers you to participate actively in shaping your inner life. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, you create conditions within yourself that support peace. The Buddhist path describes this transformation as awakening, not in a dramatic or mystical sense, but as a clear recognition of how the mind works. When you understand this mechanism, you gain the freedom to redirect your attention toward what nurtures well-being. As this awareness deepens, happiness becomes less dependent on external achievements and more connected to a sense of meaning. You find fulfillment in contributing to others, in learning, and in aligning your actions with your values. Such fulfillment has a lasting quality because it arises from authenticity rather than comparison. Even during difficult periods, you retain a quiet confidence that peace is accessible through mindful choice. This confidence does not eliminate sadness or frustration, but it prevents them from defining your entire outlook. In the long run, the practice of choosing happiness leads to a more harmonious life. It encourages you to simplify unnecessary worries, appreciate present opportunities, and cultivate compassion for yourself and others. These qualities create a foundation for sustainable joy, one that does not fluctuate dramatically with changing circumstances. By continuing to practice awareness, gratitude, and equanimity, you gradually transform your relationship with the world. Happiness becomes less about what you obtain and more about how you experience each moment. This understanding completes the journey of the 7 lessons. You learn that peace is not hidden in distant goals, but revealed through everyday mindfulness. Each breath becomes a reminder that life is unfolding here and now, inviting your full participation. When you accept this invitation with openness and intention, you discover that happiness is not something to be found at the end of the path. It is something you create with every conscious step. 8. Live simply, the freedom of wanting less. There is a silent pressure in modern life that constantly whispers that you need more in order to feel complete. More success, more possessions, more recognition, more experiences, more certainty about the future. This pressure does not always appear loudly. Often it shows up in small comparisons, in subtle dissatisfaction, or in the feeling that your life is somehow behind an invisible schedule. Buddhism teaches that this endless pursuit of more is one of the main sources of inner restlessness. It is not that comfort, growth, or progress are wrong, but when desire becomes limitless, peace becomes impossible. The mind that always wants something else cannot rest in what already exists. Living simply is not about rejecting the world or abandoning ambition. It is about learning the difference between genuine needs and habitual cravings, and discovering the quiet freedom that comes from wanting less. From an early age, people are surrounded by messages that encourage accumulation. Advertisements suggest that happiness can be purchased. Social expectations imply that value is measured through visible achievements. Over time, this creates a deep psychological pattern where identity becomes tied to ownership and status. You may notice how quickly satisfaction fades after acquiring something new. A moment of excitement appears, followed by a subtle return of longing. Buddhism describes this cycle as tanha, the thirst that keeps the mind chasing temporary pleasures. When the mind is trapped in this pattern, it begins to overlook the richness of simple experiences. A peaceful walk, a meaningful conversation, or a quiet meal may feel insufficient compared to imagined future rewards. Yet these ordinary moments often contain the very contentment people are searching for. Choosing simplicity involves conscious awareness of what truly supports well-being. It means observing how certain desires arise and questioning whether they lead to lasting fulfillment. For example, you might ask yourself whether the next purchase or achievement will genuinely improve your life or simply provide short-term distraction. This reflection does not require harsh self-denial. Instead, it encourages balance and intentional living. When you reduce unnecessary consumption of material goods or mental stimulation, you create space for clarity. This space allows deeper appreciation of what is already present. Many Buddhist practitioners describe simplicity as a return to authenticity, where actions align more closely with values rather than external pressures. A practical step toward simple living is to focus on mindful use of time and energy. Modern schedules often become crowded with obligations that do not contribute to personal growth or happiness. By identifying which activities bring genuine meaning, you can gradually release those that create stress without purpose. This process may involve setting boundaries, learning to say no, or redefining success in more personal terms. As unnecessary complexity fades, the mind becomes calmer and more attentive. You begin to notice details that were previously ignored, such as the rhythm of daily routines or the satisfaction of completing small tasks with care. These subtle experiences nurture a stable sense of contentment that is less dependent on dramatic achievements. Simplicity also extends to the way you relate to your own thoughts. The mind often creates elaborate worries about the future or replays past events repeatedly. By practicing mindfulness, you can observe these mental habits without becoming entangled in them. When you recognize that many concerns are projections rather than immediate realities, you reduce emotional clutter. This reduction allows you to respond more thoughtfully to genuine challenges. Over time, simplicity in thinking supports resilience because your energy is directed toward constructive action rather than endless rumination. Another dimension of living simply involves cultivating gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention from scarcity to abundance by highlighting what is already sufficient. Instead of focusing on what is missing, you learn to acknowledge the support systems and opportunities that sustain you. This perspective does not deny hardship, but it balances awareness by recognizing positive elements alongside difficulties. Scientific studies have shown that regular gratitude practices can improve mood and reduce stress, reinforcing insights long emphasized in Buddhist teachings. When gratitude becomes habitual, the urge for constant acquisition diminishes and satisfaction grows more accessible. Relationships often benefit from simplicity as well. When interactions are free from excessive expectations or competition, they become more authentic and compassionate. Buddhist ethics encourage right intention and right speech, which involve communicating with honesty and kindness. By simplifying relational dynamics, you create environments where mutual respect and understanding can flourish. This does not mean avoiding conflict altogether, but it does mean approaching disagreements with clarity rather than emotional intensity. Over time, such interactions contribute to a sense of community and belonging that supports happiness more effectively than material accumulation. The environmental impact of simplicity is another important consideration. Mindful consumption reduces strain on natural resources and encourages sustainable living. Buddhism's emphasis on interconnectedness highlights how personal choices influence the broader world. When you choose moderation, you participate in a collective effort to maintain balance between human activity and ecological health. This awareness can deepen your sense of purpose, as your actions contribute not only to personal well-being, but also to the welfare of future generations. Living simply is not always easy, especially in cultures that celebrate constant expansion. It may require patience to unlearn habits formed over many years. Moments of doubt or social pressure may arise, suggesting that simplicity equals lack or limitation. However, as you continue practicing mindful reduction of excess, you may notice a gradual increase in inner freedom. Decisions become clearer, priorities more defined, and emotional reactions less extreme. This freedom allows creativity and curiosity to flourish, because your attention is no longer consumed by endless striving. Meditation practices can support the transition towards simplicity by strengthening awareness of present moment experience. Through regular observation of breath and sensation, you become more familiar with the transient nature of desires. You see how impulses arise, peak, and fade without needing to be acted upon immediately. This insight builds confidence in your ability to choose responses rather than react automatically. Over time, such discipline transforms simplicity from an abstract ideal into a lived reality. Financial habits also reflect the principle of wanting less. By distinguishing between essential expenses and impulsive purchases, you can create stability that reduces anxiety. Saving and mindful spending encourage long-term security while preventing the stress associated with debt or overcommitment. This practical dimension of simplicity aligns with Buddhist teachings on right livelihood, which emphasize ethical and sustainable ways of supporting oneself. When financial decisions are guided by awareness rather than comparison, they contribute to a sense of dignity and independence. Ultimately, the freedom of wanting less leads to a deeper appreciation of life's intrinsic value. Instead of measuring happiness through accumulation, you begin to recognize fulfillment in experiences of learning, connection, and service. This shift transforms your relationship with success, allowing achievements to be enjoyed without becoming sources of identity or pressure. Even during challenging periods, the stability gained through simple living provides a foundation for resilience. You learn that peace is not dependent on perfect circumstances, but on the clarity with which you engage each moment. As this understanding matures, simplicity reveals itself as a form of wisdom rather than sacrifice. It shows that contentment arises naturally when distractions are reduced and awareness is strengthened. By choosing moderation, gratitude, and mindful intention, you create conditions where happiness can grow steadily. This growth is quiet and sustainable, reflecting the essence of Buddhist practice. Living simply does not limit your potential, it refines it, guiding you toward a life that is both meaningful and harmonious. In this way, the eighth lesson complements the journey of the previous teachings. It reminds you that inner freedom is not achieved by adding more to your life, but by gently releasing what is unnecessary. Each step toward simplicity opens space for insight, compassion, and peace. When you embrace the freedom of wanting less, you discover that what remains is often more than enough. 9. Train the mind, the discipline that creates freedom. There is a common misunderstanding about freedom that shapes the way many people live their lives. They believe freedom means doing whatever they feel like doing in the moment, following every impulse, reacting to every emotion, and avoiding anything that feels uncomfortable. At first glance, this seems natural, even desirable, because human beings instinctively move toward pleasure and away from pain. However, Buddhism teaches that a life driven entirely by impulses does not lead to true freedom. Instead, it creates subtle chains that bind the mind to habits, distractions, and emotional turbulence. Real freedom, according to this wisdom, comes from discipline, not the harsh discipline of punishment or control, but the gentle, consistent discipline of training the mind to respond with awareness rather than reaction. The mind is incredibly powerful, yet without guidance it often behaves like an untrained animal. It jumps from thought to thought, from desire to fear, from excitement to boredom, rarely resting in clarity. Modern life intensifies this restlessness by offering constant stimulation, notifications, entertainment, and endless information streams keep attention fragmented. Over time, the ability to focus deeply weakens, and the mind becomes dependent on novelty. This dependence can lead to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and a feeling that life is slipping by without meaning. Buddhism recognizes this pattern and offers practical tools to transform it. Training the mind begins with understanding that attention is a skill that can be developed through patience and repetition. Meditation is one of the most direct methods for cultivating mental discipline. By sitting quietly and observing the breath or bodily sensations, you gradually strengthen the capacity to remain present. At first, the practice may feel frustrating because thoughts continue to arise. This is normal. The goal is not to eliminate thoughts, but to change your relationship with them. Each time you notice that your mind has wandered and gently bring it back to the present moment, you are building a form of inner strength. This strength is similar to physical fitness. It develops slowly but becomes more reliable with consistent effort. As concentration improves, daily activities begin to feel more manageable. Tasks that once seemed overwhelming can be approached step by step without the added burden of mental chaos. Another important aspect of training the mind involves ethical awareness. Buddhism emphasizes right intention, right speech, and right action as foundations for psychological stability. When your behavior aligns with values such as honesty, kindness, and responsibility, the mind experiences less internal conflict. Guilt and regret, which often arise from harmful actions, are replaced by a sense of integrity. This integrity supports emotional balance because you no longer need to justify or conceal your choices. Instead, you move through life with greater confidence and clarity. Ethical discipline is not about rigid rules. It is about creating conditions where the mind can rest without constant tension. Training the mind also means developing resilience in the face of discomfort. Many people avoid challenging situations because they fear failure or emotional pain. However, growth often occurs precisely in these moments of difficulty. By gradually exposing yourself to tasks that require effort, you expand your capacity to handle stress. This expansion builds confidence and reduces fear. For example, learning a new skill or maintaining a healthy routine may initially feel demanding, but persistence transforms effort into habit. Buddhism encourages this process by highlighting the impermanent nature of discomfort. What feels difficult today may become natural tomorrow if approached with patience. The discipline of mental training extends to how you consume information and engage with technology. In a world filled with distractions, choosing when and how to focus becomes an act of self-care. Setting boundaries around screen time, prioritizing meaningful activities, and allowing periods of silence can restore balance. These choices support concentration and creativity, enabling deeper engagement with work, relationships, and personal reflection. Over time, the mind becomes less reactive to external stimuli and more capable of sustaining purposeful attention. Gratitude and compassion are additional elements of mental training that enhance well-being. By consciously practicing appreciation for small aspects of life, you counteract the tendency to focus on problems. Compassion, directed both toward yourself and others, reduces harsh judgment and fosters emotional warmth. These qualities are not merely moral ideals, they have practical psychological benefits. Studies in positive psychology show that regular gratitude practices can increase happiness and reduce depressive symptoms. Buddhism anticipated these findings by emphasizing the transformative power of wholesome mental states. The process of training the mind also reshapes your relationship with time. Instead of feeling constantly rushed or pressured, you learn to prioritize presence over productivity alone. This does not mean abandoning ambition, but redefining success to include inner peace. When attention is stable, even routine activities can become opportunities for mindfulness. Washing dishes, walking, or listening to someone speak can be experienced fully rather than mechanically. This shift enhances satisfaction and reduces the sense of life passing too quickly. Ultimately, discipline creates freedom by reducing the influence of unconscious habits. When you understand how the mind operates, you gain the ability to choose responses rather than react automatically. This choice empowers you to navigate challenges with composure and insight. Over time, mental training transforms not only personal experience, but also relationships and contributions to society. A calm and focused individual is more capable of offering support, making thoughtful decisions, and pursuing meaningful goals. The ninth lesson reminds you that happiness is not sustained by chance, but by the quality of attention you cultivate. By committing to the discipline of awareness, you unlock a deeper freedom that is independent of changing circumstances. This freedom allows you to live with intention, resilience, and compassion, shaping a life that reflects both inner clarity and outer harmony. 10. Accept change, the wisdom of flowing with life. One of the deepest truths taught in Buddhism is that everything in life is constantly changing. Nothing remains exactly the same, not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your relationships, not even your physical body. Yet many people spend their lives resisting this simple reality. They try to hold on to pleasant experiences and push away uncomfortable ones. They wish the past could return or fear that the future will take away what they love. This resistance creates tension in the mind because life continues to move forward whether we are ready or not. Learning to accept change does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means understanding the natural rhythm of existence and developing the flexibility to move with it rather than against it. When you align yourself with this rhythm, you experience a sense of flow that reduces anxiety and increases emotional balance. From a young age, people are encouraged to seek stability. Stability can be comforting because it provides a sense of predictability and control. However, when stability becomes an expectation rather than a temporary condition, disappointment arises. Jobs change, friendships evolve, opportunities appear and disappear, and personal priorities shift over time. Buddhism describes this dynamic nature of reality as impermanence or anicca. Recognizing impermanence is not meant to create fear. It is meant to bring clarity. When you truly understand that change is inevitable, you stop taking temporary situations for granted. You begin to appreciate what is present while it lasts and prepare yourself mentally for transitions that will eventually occur. The wisdom of accepting change can be illustrated through the metaphor of a river. A river does not resist the obstacles in its path. When it encounters rocks or bends, it adjusts its direction and continues flowing. This adaptability allows the river to reach its destination without exhausting itself in unnecessary struggle. Human life follows a similar pattern. When you cling rigidly to expectations about how events should unfold, you create internal conflict. Thoughts like, "This should not be happening," or "things must stay the way they were," amplify distress. By contrast, when you acknowledge that change is part of growth, you can respond with creativity and resilience. Acceptance does not eliminate pain, but it prevents additional suffering caused by resistance. Practicing acceptance begins with small, everyday experiences. For example, you might notice how quickly moods shift during a single day. A moment of frustration can transform into calmness after a brief pause, or excitement may fade into neutrality. Observing these fluctuations helps you realize that emotional states are temporary visitors rather than permanent identities. Meditation practices often emphasize watching sensations and thoughts arise and pass without attachment. This observation builds confidence in your ability to remain steady even when circumstances fluctuate. Over time, you develop trust in your capacity to adapt. Accepting change also involves letting go of the illusion of total control. While effort and planning are valuable, many outcomes depend on factors beyond personal influence. Weather conditions, economic trends, health issues, and the choices of others all shape life's trajectory. When you acknowledge these uncertainties, you reduce the pressure to manage every detail. This reduction of pressure can lead to greater mental clarity and better decision-making. Instead of reacting impulsively to unexpected events, you pause, assess the situation, and choose a thoughtful response. Such composure is a hallmark of emotional maturity and wisdom. Another dimension of flowing with life is embracing personal transformation. As you gain experience, your perspectives and goals naturally evolve. Some people resist this evolution because they fear losing their previous identity. However, growth often requires releasing outdated self-images. Buddhism encourages self-reflection to understand which patterns still serve your well-being and which ones limit potential. By welcoming change as an opportunity for renewal, you cultivate a mindset that supports lifelong learning. This openness enhances creativity and allows you to discover new sources of meaning. Relationships provide another context where acceptance of change is essential. People enter and leave each other's lives for various reasons, and connections that once felt permanent may transform over time. Holding on to expectations that others must remain unchanged can lead to disappointment. Instead, practicing empathy and flexibility enables healthier interactions. You learn to appreciate shared moments without demanding permanence. This perspective fosters gratitude and reduces the fear of loss, making relationships more authentic and compassionate. The natural world offers countless reminders of impermanence. Seasons shift, trees shed leaves and grow new ones, and the cycle of day and night continues without interruption. Observing these patterns can deepen your understanding of life's fluidity. When you see change as a universal principle rather than a personal misfortune, you develop a broader sense of perspective. Challenges become part of a larger process rather than isolated setbacks. This awareness encourages patience because you recognize that difficult phases are often followed by renewal. Accepting change does not mean abandoning goals or surrendering to fate. It means maintaining commitment while remaining flexible in methods and expectations. For instance, if one path becomes blocked, you explore alternative routes instead of clinging to frustration. This adaptability increases the likelihood of success because it keeps you responsive to new information and opportunities. In this way, acceptance becomes an active form of wisdom rather than passive resignation. The emotional benefits of flowing with life are significant. Reduced resistance leads to lower stress levels and greater psychological resilience. You become less likely to interpret unexpected events as personal failures. Instead, you view them as invitations to adjust and grow. This shift in mindset supports long-term happiness because it aligns your internal state with the external reality of change. Over time, you may notice a deeper sense of calm, even in uncertain situations, reflecting confidence in your ability to navigate transitions. Spiritual traditions often describe enlightenment as a state of harmony with the natural order of existence. While such descriptions can seem abstract, their practical meaning lies in everyday awareness. Each moment offers an opportunity to practice acceptance, whether by releasing minor irritations or by embracing significant life transitions. By consistently choosing openness over resistance, you cultivate a peaceful attitude that influences all areas of experience. The 10th lesson completes the journey of understanding impermanence and adaptability. It reminds you that happiness is not achieved by freezing life in a preferred state, but by learning to move gracefully with its constant unfolding. When you accept change, you discover that stability can exist within movement, just as a dancer maintains balance while shifting positions. This inner stability allows you to face the future with curiosity rather than fear. In the end, the wisdom of flowing with life transforms uncertainty into possibility. Instead of viewing change as an enemy, you recognize it as a teacher guiding you toward resilience, insight, and compassion. By practicing acceptance, you align your mind with the dynamic nature of reality, creating conditions for lasting peace. Each step you take in this direction strengthens your capacity to live fully in the present while remaining prepared for whatever transformations may arise. 11. Know yourself, the courage to see clearly. Among all the teachings that guide a person toward peace and wisdom, the journey of knowing oneself stands as one of the most profound and transformative. Many individuals move through life focused almost entirely on external achievements, relationships, and responsibilities, yet they spend very little time understanding their own thoughts, motivations, fears, and desires. Buddhism emphasizes that true clarity begins when attention turns inward. Knowing yourself does not mean analyzing every detail of your personality or becoming overly critical of your behavior. It means developing an honest awareness of how your mind works, what influences your decisions, and what patterns shape your emotional responses. This awareness is not meant to judge or label, but to illuminate. When you see yourself clearly, you gain the freedom to grow beyond unconscious habits and create a life aligned with deeper values. The process of self-understanding often begins with simple observation. Throughout the day, thoughts arise automatically in response to situations. Some thoughts encourage confidence and kindness, while others generate anxiety, jealousy, or anger. Without awareness, these mental reactions guide actions without question. Buddhism teaches that by observing thoughts as temporary events rather than fixed truths, you weaken their control. For example, noticing the thought, "I am not good enough," as merely a passing mental formation creates space for alternative perspectives. This space allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Over time, repeated observation builds insight into recurring themes in your thinking, revealing how beliefs about self-worth, success, or relationships influence behavior. Another aspect of knowing yourself involves understanding emotional triggers. Everyone has certain situations that evoke strong feelings, often rooted in past experiences. A critical comment may cause disproportionate hurt, or uncertainty about the future may lead to excessive worry. Rather than avoiding these triggers, Buddhist practice encourages gentle exploration. By reflecting on why particular reactions occur, you can uncover underlying fears or unmet needs. This process requires patience and compassion because self-discovery can reveal vulnerabilities. However, acknowledging vulnerability is a step toward healing. When you recognize patterns clearly, you become less likely to be overwhelmed by them, gaining the ability to choose healthier responses. Meditation plays a central role in cultivating self-knowledge. Sitting quietly and focusing on the breath allows the mind to settle, making subtle mental movements easier to detect. During meditation, you may notice how thoughts appear spontaneously, how emotions shift, and how attention fluctuates. These observations demonstrate that the mind is not a solid entity, but a dynamic process. Buddhism refers to this insight as understanding the nature of the self, or anatta, which challenges the belief in a fixed identity. Instead of defining yourself by roles, achievements, or failures, you begin to see identity as fluid and adaptable. This perspective reduces attachment to labels and opens possibilities for growth. Self-knowledge also involves examining values and intentions. Many people follow paths shaped by social expectations rather than personal meaning. They pursue careers, lifestyles, or relationships because they believe these choices will bring approval or security. While external validation can be motivating, it may not lead to genuine fulfillment. Reflecting on what truly matters to you helps align actions with inner purpose. Buddhism encourages right intention, which involves cultivating motivations rooted in compassion, wisdom, and ethical awareness. When decisions are guided by these principles, life gains coherence and direction. You feel less conflicted because your actions reflect authentic priorities rather than borrowed ambitions. Another dimension of knowing yourself is recognizing strengths as well as limitations. Some individuals focus excessively on shortcomings, overlooking abilities that could contribute positively to their lives and communities. Others may ignore areas that need improvement, leading to stagnation. Balanced self-awareness acknowledges both aspects. By appreciating talents and working patiently on weaknesses, you create a realistic foundation for development. This balanced perspective fosters confidence without arrogance and humility without self-doubt. Relationships provide valuable opportunities for self-discovery. Interactions with others often mirror aspects of your own personality. For instance, irritation towards someone's behavior may reflect unresolved issues within yourself. By observing these reflections, you gain insight into personal attitudes and expectations. Buddhist teachings on compassion and empathy support this process, encouraging you to view conflicts as chances to learn rather than occasions for blame. Through mindful communication, you deepen understanding of both yourself and others, strengthening emotional intelligence. The courage to know yourself also includes confronting uncomfortable truths. You may realize that certain habits harm well-being or that some beliefs limit potential. Accepting these realizations can be challenging, yet it is essential for transformation. Buddhism emphasizes that awareness itself is healing. Once you see clearly, you can begin making intentional changes. This might involve adopting healthier routines, seeking supportive environments, or practicing forgiveness toward yourself and others. Gradual adjustments lead to lasting growth. Self-knowledge evolves throughout life. As circumstances change, new insights emerge, requiring continuous reflection. Rather than seeking a final, static understanding of who you are, Buddhism invites you to remain curious and open. This openness prevents rigidity and supports adaptability. You learn to view personal identity as an ongoing journey rather than a fixed destination. Such a mindset enhances resilience because you are prepared to redefine yourself in response to new experiences. Ultimately, knowing yourself creates a foundation for genuine happiness. When you understand your mind, you become less influenced by external pressures and more capable of living intentionally. Decisions become clearer, relationships more authentic, and goals more meaningful. This inner clarity reduces confusion and increases peace, because actions arise from awareness rather than unconscious habit. The 11th lesson reminds you that the path to wisdom begins within. By cultivating honest self-reflection and compassionate insight, you unlock the freedom to shape your life with purpose and balance. 12. Walk with compassion, the power of a soft heart in a hard world. In a world that often rewards speed, competition, and personal achievement, compassion can appear to be a quiet and easily overlooked quality. Many people believe that to succeed they must become tougher, more guarded, and emotionally distant. They assume that kindness is a weakness or that caring deeply about others will only lead to disappointment. Buddhism offers a very different perspective. It teaches that compassion is not a fragile emotion, but a powerful form of wisdom. It is the ability to recognize the shared human experience of joy and suffering, and to respond with understanding rather than judgment. Walking with compassion does not mean ignoring personal boundaries or allowing harm to continue. Instead, it means choosing to meet life with an open heart, even when circumstances are challenging. This openness has the potential to transform not only individual well-being, but also the quality of relationships and communities. Compassion begins with awareness. When you observe the world carefully, you start to notice that every person carries unseen struggles. A stranger's impatience may hide anxiety, a friend's silence may reflect sadness, and even those who appear confident may be navigating uncertainty. Recognizing this complexity softens the tendency to react harshly. Buddhism encourages practitioners to look beyond surface behavior and consider the deeper causes of actions. This perspective reduces blame and fosters empathy. By understanding that suffering is a universal part of life, you develop patience and tolerance, qualities that support emotional stability. An important step in cultivating compassion is learning to extend it toward yourself. Many individuals hold themselves to unrealistic standards, criticizing every mistake or perceived failure. This harsh self-judgment can create chronic stress and diminish self-confidence. Buddhist teachings on loving kindness emphasize the importance of treating oneself with the same care offered to others. Simple practices, such as silently wishing yourself well-being or acknowledging personal efforts, can gradually replace negative internal dialogue with supportive thoughts. As self-compassion grows, it becomes easier to share kindness with others without feeling depleted. Compassion also influences communication. Words have the power to heal or harm, and mindful speech is a central element of Buddhist ethics. When you choose to speak honestly yet gently, you create space for constructive dialogue. Listening attentively without interrupting or assuming intentions allows deeper understanding to emerge. Such communication reduces conflict and builds trust. Over time, relationships characterized by compassionate interaction become sources of mutual growth rather than tension. The practice of compassion extends beyond personal relationships to include social and environmental responsibility. Buddhism teaches interconnectedness, the idea that all forms of life are linked in a complex web of cause and effect. This awareness encourages actions that support collective well-being, such as helping those in need, protecting natural resources, and promoting fairness. By considering how your choices affect others, you contribute to a more harmonious society. Compassionate actions, even small ones, can create ripple effects that inspire further kindness. Another dimension of compassion involves responding to suffering with balanced action. It is possible to feel empathy without becoming overwhelmed. Buddhism distinguishes between compassion and attachment, reminding practitioners to maintain inner steadiness while offering support. For example, when helping someone facing difficulty, you can provide encouragement or practical assistance while recognizing that their journey is ultimately their own. This balanced approach prevents emotional burnout and sustains long-term commitment to caring relationships. Meditation practices focused on compassion strengthen this quality by directing attention toward feelings of goodwill. During such meditation, you may visualize sending positive intentions to yourself, loved ones, neutral individuals, and even those with whom you experience conflict. This systematic expansion of kindness reduces hostility and fosters a sense of connection. Scientific research has shown that compassion meditation can enhance emotional regulation and increase prosocial behavior, supporting insights long preserved in Buddhist traditions. Walking with compassion also requires courage. In situations where injustice or misunderstanding occurs, compassionate individuals may choose to act rather than remain silent. This action is not driven by anger, but by a desire to alleviate harm. By combining empathy with wisdom, you can advocate for change while maintaining respect for differing perspectives. Such courage strengthens moral integrity and contributes to meaningful progress. The emotional benefits of compassion are profound. Acts of kindness release positive neurochemicals that enhance mood and reduce stress. People who engage in regular compassionate behavior often report greater life satisfaction and resilience. This is because focusing on the well-being of others shifts attention away from excessive self-preoccupation. Instead of dwelling on personal worries, you become part of a larger narrative of cooperation and support. This sense of purpose enriches daily experiences and promotes long-term happiness. Compassion also transforms the way you perceive challenges. When faced with personal hardship, you can view your own suffering with understanding rather than harshness. This perspective encourages problem-solving and acceptance simultaneously. You learn to treat setbacks as opportunities for growth while maintaining kindness toward yourself. Over time, this balanced attitude reduces fear of failure and increases willingness to explore new possibilities. In spiritual contexts, compassion is often described as the natural expression of insight. As you deepen awareness of impermanence and interconnectedness, rigid boundaries between self and others begin to soften. You recognize that supporting another person's well-being ultimately supports your own. This realization leads to spontaneous acts of generosity and patience. Compassion becomes less of a deliberate effort and more of a way of being. The 12th lesson emphasizes that a soft heart can thrive even in demanding environments. Rather than weakening resilience, compassion strengthens it by fostering adaptability and cooperation. In professional settings, compassionate leadership improves teamwork and productivity. In families, it nurtures trust and emotional security. In communities, it encourages inclusiveness and mutual respect. These collective benefits demonstrate that compassion is both a personal virtue and a social resource. Ultimately, walking with compassion aligns your life with a deeper sense of meaning. It shifts focus from narrow self-interest to shared human experience. Through mindful intention, ethical action, and consistent practice, you create conditions where kindness becomes a guiding principle. This transformation does not occur overnight, but each moment of empathy contributes to lasting change. By choosing compassion repeatedly, you cultivate a peaceful mind and contribute to a more harmonious world. The journey of compassion completes the series of teachings by integrating awareness, discipline, and simplicity into heartfelt connection. It reminds you that happiness is not isolated within individual achievement, but expands through relationships and service. When you walk with compassion, you embody the wisdom that true strength lies in understanding and care. This realization opens the door to a life that is both fulfilling and beneficial to others, reflecting the essence of Buddhist philosophy. 13. Live simply, the freedom hidden in less. In a world that constantly encourages accumulation, complexity, and endless striving, the idea of living simply can seem almost radical. Many people are taught that happiness will come when they acquire more possessions, achieve higher status, or fill every moment with productivity. Yet, despite these efforts, a quiet dissatisfaction often remains. Buddhism offers a powerful alternative perspective. It teaches that true contentment does not arise from having more, but from needing less. Living simply is not about deprivation or rejecting modern life. It is about understanding what is essential for well-being and gently letting go of what creates unnecessary burden. When life becomes less cluttered physically, mentally, and emotionally, space opens for peace, clarity, and genuine joy. The concept of simplicity begins with awareness of how desires influence daily choices. Advertising, social comparison, and cultural expectations frequently shape what people believe they must own or achieve. Over time, these influences can create a cycle of craving and temporary satisfaction. A new purchase may bring excitement for a short period, but soon the mind searches for the next object or experience to maintain that feeling. Buddhism describes this pattern as tanha, or craving, which fuels dissatisfaction because it is never fully satisfied. By observing how this cycle operates, you can start questioning whether each desire truly contributes to lasting happiness. This questioning is the first step toward intentional living. Physical simplicity often provides the most visible starting point. Consider the environment where you spend most of your time. A space crowded with unnecessary items can create subtle mental pressure, making it harder to relax or focus. Simplifying your surroundings by keeping only what is useful or meaningful can reduce stress and enhance clarity. This process does not require drastic changes. Even small adjustments, such as organizing a desk or removing unused objects, can create a sense of calm. The external order often reflects and supports internal order. When you reduce physical clutter, the mind naturally feels lighter and more spacious. Mental simplicity is equally important. Modern life exposes individuals to constant streams of information, opinions, and expectations. While access to knowledge is valuable, excessive input can fragment attention and increase anxiety. Practicing mindful consumption of media, choosing quality over quantity, and allowing periods of silence help restore balance. Buddhism encourages cultivating right mindfulness, which involves being present with current experience rather than becoming lost in endless stimulation. By focusing on one task at a time and allowing the mind to rest between activities, you strengthen concentration and reduce emotional exhaustion. Emotional simplicity involves releasing unnecessary attachments and conflicts. Many people carry grudges, worries, or comparisons that complicate their inner world. Simplifying emotionally does not mean ignoring responsibilities or avoiding meaningful relationships. Instead, it means addressing issues with honesty and compassion, then letting go of what cannot be changed. Forgiveness, gratitude, and acceptance are practices that clear emotional clutter. When you stop holding on to past resentments or future anxieties, you create room for appreciation of the present moment. Financial simplicity can also support well-being. Rather than equating success with constant consumption, Buddhism suggests evaluating needs realistically and practicing moderation. This approach, sometimes called the middle way, avoids both excessive indulgence and severe restriction. By managing resources thoughtfully, you reduce dependence on external validation and gain greater autonomy. Saving, sharing, and spending with awareness contribute to stability and peace of mind. Financial simplicity often leads to increased freedom, allowing more time for meaningful pursuits such as learning, creativity, or service. Living simply also transforms your relationship with time. When schedules become overloaded with commitments driven by obligation or fear of missing out, life can feel rushed and fragmented. Prioritizing activities that align with personal values creates a more balanced rhythm. This might involve setting boundaries, reducing multitasking, or dedicating regular moments to reflection and rest. Buddhism emphasizes that time is not merely a resource to be managed, but an opportunity to experience life deeply. By slowing down, you notice details that would otherwise be overlooked, enriching daily existence. Another dimension of simplicity is gratitude. When you consciously appreciate what is already present, health, relationships, nature, or even basic comforts, the urge for constant acquisition diminishes. Gratitude shifts attention from scarcity to abundance, fostering contentment. This mindset does not eliminate ambition, but grounds it in appreciation rather than dissatisfaction. As gratitude grows, simple pleasures such as a shared meal, a quiet walk, or a meaningful conversation become sources of genuine happiness. Community and connection also benefit from simplicity. When interactions are guided by authenticity rather than competition or comparison, relationships become more supportive. Living simply can inspire others to reflect on their own priorities, creating environments where cooperation replaces rivalry. Acts of kindness, shared experiences, and honest dialogue strengthen bonds and contribute to collective well-being. Buddhism teaches that personal transformation often influences the wider social context, demonstrating the interconnected nature of human experience. Environmental awareness is another aspect of simple living. Recognizing the impact of consumption on natural ecosystems encourages more sustainable choices. Reducing waste, conserving resources, and valuing quality over quantity align personal well-being with planetary health. This alignment reflects Buddhist principles of compassion and responsibility toward all forms of life. By living simply, you contribute to preserving the conditions that support future generations. The psychological benefits of simplicity are profound. Reduced clutter and moderated desires lead to decreased stress and increased mental clarity. Decision-making becomes easier because fewer distractions compete for attention. Creativity and insight flourish in environments that allow space for reflection. Over time, simplicity cultivates resilience, enabling you to adapt to change without feeling overwhelmed by loss or uncertainty. Happiness becomes less dependent on external circumstances and more rooted in inner stability. Living simply does not require withdrawal from society or rejection of progress. It is about intentional participation in life, guided by awareness of what truly matters. Each person's path to simplicity will look different, shaped by individual values and circumstances. The essential element is mindfulness, the willingness to pause, reflect, and choose consciously. Through consistent practice, simplicity evolves from a deliberate effort into a natural way of being. The 13th lesson reminds you that freedom often lies hidden beneath layers of excess. By embracing simplicity, you create conditions where peace, clarity, and compassion can flourish. This transformation enhances not only personal happiness, but also the quality of interactions with others and the environment. When you learn to live with less, you discover that what remains is often more than enough. 14. Be present, the quiet miracle of this moment. Among all the teachings that guide a person toward peace and clarity, the practice of being fully present stands as one of the most transformative. Many individuals live most of their lives either replaying the past or anticipating the future. They carry memories of regret, loss, or missed opportunities, and at the same time they worry about what might happen tomorrow. While reflection and planning are natural human abilities, excessive attachment to past and future often causes the present moment to slip away unnoticed. Buddhism teaches that true life unfolds only in the present. The past exists as memory, and the future exists as imagination. The only place where experience actually happens is here, now, in this breath, in this moment. Learning to be present is not about ignoring responsibilities or abandoning goals. It is about grounding your awareness in what is real and immediate, allowing life to be experienced directly rather than through constant mental distraction. The human mind has a remarkable capacity for storytelling. It creates narratives about who we are, what we should achieve, and how others perceive us. These stories can be useful for organizing experience, but they can also become sources of anxiety. When attention is trapped in mental projections, the richness of the present fades into the background. You may eat without tasting, listen without hearing, or walk without noticing the environment around you. Buddhism identifies this habitual distraction as a key contributor to suffering. The practice of mindfulness, or sati, offers a practical way to return attention to the immediacy of experience. By focusing on sensations such as the rhythm of breathing, the feeling of footsteps on the ground, or the sound of surrounding voices, you reconnect with reality as it unfolds. Being present begins with simple awareness of the body. Physical sensations serve as anchors that bring the mind back from abstract thought into direct experience. For example, noticing the expansion and contraction of the chest while breathing can calm nervous system activity and reduce stress. Scientific studies on mindfulness have shown that conscious attention to bodily sensations can lower levels of cortisol, a hormone associated with anxiety. These findings support ancient Buddhist insights that presence is not only a spiritual concept, but also a practical tool for emotional regulation. When you learn to observe sensations without immediate judgment, you create a pause between stimulus and response. This pause allows thoughtful action rather than impulsive reaction. Another dimension of presence involves attentive listening. In conversations, many people prepare their responses while the other person is still speaking. This habit limits understanding and can lead to misunderstandings. Practicing presence in dialogue means giving full attention to the speaker's words, tone, and emotional context. Such listening fosters empathy and strengthens relationships. When individuals feel genuinely heard, trust develops naturally. Buddhism encourages mindful speech and mindful listening as complementary practices that enhance harmony in social interactions. Presence also transforms routine activities into opportunities for insight. Tasks such as washing dishes, preparing food, or commuting can become meditative experiences when approached with awareness. Instead of viewing these actions as obstacles to more important goals, you can treat them as moments of connection with life's flow. The warmth of water, the aroma of ingredients, or the rhythm of movement all become sources of sensory richness. Over time, this approach reduces the tendency to categorize experiences as either enjoyable or burdensome. Each moment is seen as part of a continuous unfolding rather than a means to an end. Technology presents a significant challenge to cultivating presence. Digital devices provide constant stimulation, making it easy to escape into virtual environments. While technology offers convenience and access to information, excessive use can fragment attention and reduce satisfaction with real-life experiences. Buddhism does not require rejecting modern tools, but encourages mindful engagement with them. Setting intentional limits on screen time, creating device-free spaces, and dedicating moments to silence can restore balance. By choosing when and how to connect digitally, you protect the capacity to engage deeply with the physical world. The practice of presence also influences creativity and problem-solving. When attention is scattered, it becomes difficult to generate original ideas or address challenges effectively. Focused awareness allows patterns and connections to emerge naturally. Many artists, scientists, and thinkers describe moments of insight occurring when they are fully absorbed in the present task. Buddhism recognizes this phenomenon as the clarity that arises from concentrated attention. By training the mind to remain here and now, you enhance both productivity and innovation. Emotionally, presence reduces the intensity of fear and regret. When you notice that most worries relate to events that have not yet happened, you realize how much energy is spent on imagined scenarios. Similarly, dwelling excessively on past mistakes can create unnecessary guilt. Mindfulness invites you to acknowledge these thoughts without becoming entangled in them. You observe them as mental events that arise and fade, just like sounds or sensations. This perspective weakens their hold on consciousness, allowing greater peace. Spiritual traditions often describe the present moment as sacred. This does not imply a mystical experience reserved for special occasions. Rather, it suggests that ordinary moments hold profound significance when experienced with full awareness. Watching a sunset, feeling the breeze, or sharing laughter with a friend can evoke a sense of connection that transcends routine. Buddhism teaches that enlightenment itself is not separate from daily life, but revealed through attentive participation in it. Each moment offers an opportunity to awaken to the richness of existence. Presence also supports ethical living. When you are attentive, you become more aware of the consequences of actions. This awareness encourages thoughtful choices that align with values such as compassion and honesty. Instead of acting on autopilot, you consider how behavior affects both yourself and others. Over time, mindful decision-making contributes to a sense of integrity and self-respect. This moral clarity enhances well-being because it reduces inner conflict and promotes harmony in relationships. Another benefit of presence is the deepening of gratitude. When attention rests in the current experience, small details that might otherwise go unnoticed become sources of appreciation. The warmth of sunlight, the taste of food, or the comfort of shelter gain significance. Gratitude shifts focus from what is lacking to what is available, fostering contentment. This contentment does not eliminate ambition, but grounds it in a stable foundation of appreciation. The practice of being present requires patience and consistency. The mind will naturally wander, and distractions will arise. Rather than viewing this as failure, Buddhism encourages gentle persistence. Each time you return attention to the present, you strengthen awareness. Over months and years, this repeated effort reshapes mental habits, making presence more natural. The journey itself becomes part of the reward, as you discover increasing calm and clarity. Ultimately, the 14th lesson reminds you that life is not waiting in the future or hidden in the past. It is unfolding in the immediacy of this moment. By cultivating presence, you unlock the quiet miracle of experiencing reality directly. This awareness enriches relationships, enhances creativity, supports ethical action, and nurtures inner peace. Through mindful attention, you learn that happiness is not something to be pursued elsewhere. It is found in the simple act of being fully alive right now. 15. Let go of control, discover the peace of trusting life. One of the deepest struggles many people face is the constant desire to control everything around them. From childhood, individuals are encouraged to plan carefully, predict outcomes, and manage circumstances in ways that promise safety and success. While planning and responsibility are important, an excessive need for control can quietly become a source of stress and dissatisfaction. Buddhism teaches that life is inherently uncertain, and that attempting to dominate every detail of existence often leads to frustration. Letting go of control does not mean becoming careless or passive. It means recognizing the limits of personal influence and developing trust in the natural unfolding of events. This trust creates space for peace, resilience, and emotional balance. The illusion of control begins with the belief that happiness depends on arranging life according to precise expectations. People imagine that if they work hard enough, think strategically enough, or prepare thoroughly enough, they can prevent disappointment or failure. However, reality rarely conforms perfectly to these plans. Unexpected changes, external circumstances, and the independent choices of others all shape outcomes. When individuals cling tightly to rigid expectations, each deviation can feel like a personal defeat. Buddhism encourages a more flexible mindset. By understanding that control is partial and temporary, you reduce the emotional shock that accompanies unpredictability. Acceptance of uncertainty becomes a source of strength rather than weakness. Letting go of control involves observing how the mind reacts when situations do not go as planned. Anxiety, anger, or disappointment often arise from the gap between expectation and reality. These emotions are natural, yet they can intensify when the mind insists that events should have been different. Buddhist teachings on mindfulness invite you to notice these reactions without immediately trying to suppress or justify them. By acknowledging feelings with honesty, you create an opportunity to respond wisely. Over time, this awareness transforms habitual resistance into thoughtful adaptation. Instead of wasting energy on what cannot be changed, you focus on constructive actions within your influence. Another aspect of releasing control relates to relationships. Many conflicts emerge when people attempt to shape others' behavior according to personal preferences. While guidance and communication are essential, excessive control can damage trust and create resentment. Buddhism highlights the importance of compassion and respect for autonomy. Each person follows a unique path shaped by experiences, beliefs, and aspirations. Accepting this diversity allows relationships to develop organically. You can offer support and share perspectives without demanding conformity. This balance fosters mutual understanding and emotional harmony. Trusting life also involves embracing vulnerability. The desire for control often masks fear of loss, rejection, or uncertainty. By acknowledging these fears, you begin to see that complete security is an illusion. Buddhism teaches that clinging to permanence in an impermanent world generates suffering. Instead, cultivating inner stability helps you face change with courage. Meditation practices that focus on breathing or bodily sensations can anchor awareness during challenging moments. These practices remind you that even in uncertainty, there is a steady presence within an observing mind, capable of navigating complexity. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning goals or responsibilities. It means distinguishing between effort and attachment. You can work diligently toward meaningful objectives while remaining open to different outcomes. This approach is sometimes described as acting without clinging. For example, you may prepare thoroughly for an examination or invest time in building a career, yet you accept that results depend on multiple factors. By focusing on process rather than outcome, you reduce performance anxiety and increase enjoyment of the journey. Buddhism refers to this balanced state as equanimity, a calm steadiness that persists regardless of success or failure. The natural world provides powerful metaphors for trusting life. Consider how trees bend during strong winds rather than resisting until they break. Their flexibility ensures survival. Similarly, rivers adapt their course when encountering obstacles, continuing to flow without losing purpose. These examples illustrate that resilience often arises from adaptability rather than rigid control. When you align with this principle, challenges become opportunities to learn rather than threats to identity. This perspective fosters creativity and problem-solving, enabling growth even in difficult circumstances. Letting go of control can also deepen spiritual awareness. Many Buddhist traditions emphasize surrendering the illusion of a fixed, independent self. By recognizing interconnectedness with all forms of life, you see that individual existence is part of a broader process. This realization encourages humility and gratitude. Instead of perceiving yourself as the sole architect of success or failure, you appreciate the contributions of countless influences: family, society, environment, and chance. Such awareness reduces ego-driven tension and nurtures compassion for others who face similar uncertainties. Practicing trust in daily life may begin with small steps. You might allow a schedule to include unstructured time, resist the urge to micromanage tasks, or accept that not every decision requires immediate resolution. These adjustments gradually retrain the mind to tolerate ambiguity. Over time, you may notice increased patience and reduced stress. The capacity to remain calm amid unpredictability becomes a valuable asset, supporting both personal well-being and professional effectiveness. Emotionally, releasing control opens the door to joy. When you are not constantly calculating risks or anticipating problems, you become more receptive to spontaneous experiences. Laughter, creativity, and connection flourish in environments where pressure to control is minimal. Buddhism suggests that genuine happiness arises when the mind rests in openness rather than tension. This openness allows life's beauty to be appreciated without fear of losing it. Even difficult moments can be met with curiosity instead of resistance. Another benefit of trusting life is improved decision-making. Paradoxically, letting go of excessive control can lead to clearer choices. When anxiety decreases, intuition and insight become more accessible. You can evaluate situations realistically rather than through the lens of fear. This balanced approach supports wiser actions that align with long-term values. In this way, surrendering control enhances rather than diminishes personal agency. The 15th lesson emphasizes that peace does not come from dominating life, but from cooperating with its natural rhythms. By releasing rigid expectations and cultivating trust, you create space for resilience, compassion, and creativity. This transformation allows you to move through uncertainty with confidence, recognizing that stability can exist even amid change. Ultimately, letting go of control reveals a profound truth. Life's unfolding is not an enemy to be conquered, but a journey to be experienced with awareness and acceptance. 16. Find joy in the ordinary, awakening to life as it is. Many people spend their lives waiting for extraordinary moments to feel truly happy. They imagine that joy will arrive when they achieve a major goal, travel to a distant place, gain recognition, or experience something dramatic and unforgettable. While such moments can be meaningful, Buddhism teaches that lasting happiness is rarely found in rare or exceptional events. Instead, it is quietly present in the ordinary experiences that fill most of our days. The simple act of breathing, walking, eating, speaking, or resting contains a depth of life that often goes unnoticed. Learning to find joy in the ordinary is not about lowering expectations or settling for less. It is about awakening to the richness that already exists within everyday experience. The human mind is naturally drawn to novelty and stimulation. This tendency once helped our ancestors survive by encouraging exploration and adaptation. However, in modern life it can create a constant sense of dissatisfaction. When attention is always searching for something new or exciting, familiar aspects of life appear dull or insignificant. Buddhism describes this pattern as a form of craving that prevents contentment. By training the mind to appreciate routine moments, you counteract this restless impulse and cultivate a deeper, more stable form of happiness. Joy becomes less dependent on external conditions and more rooted in awareness itself. One way to begin this practice is by engaging fully with simple activities. Consider the experience of drinking a cup of tea or coffee. Often people consume beverages while distracted by thoughts or digital devices, barely noticing taste or aroma. When you slow down and focus on sensory details, the warmth of the cup, the subtle flavors, the rhythm of breathing, you transform a routine action into a mindful ritual. This attentiveness does not require extra time or resources. It only requires willingness to be present. Over time, such moments accumulate into a broader sense of satisfaction because life is experienced directly rather than filtered through distraction. Nature provides abundant opportunities to discover joy in the ordinary. Observing the movement of clouds, the sound of rain, or the pattern of sunlight on a wall can evoke a quiet sense of wonder. Buddhism often encourages spending time outdoors as a way to reconnect with the natural flow of existence. These experiences remind you that beauty is not limited to special occasions. It unfolds continuously, accessible to anyone who pauses long enough to notice. Even in urban environments, small elements of nature, plants, birds, changing light offer moments of connection that enrich emotional well-being. Relationships also reveal the significance of ordinary joy. Shared meals, casual conversations, or silent companionship can deepen bonds more effectively than grand gestures. When you listen attentively and express genuine interest in others' experiences, everyday interactions become meaningful. Buddhism emphasizes compassion and presence as foundations for harmonious relationships. By valuing small acts of kindness, such as a supportive word or a thoughtful gesture, you contribute to an atmosphere of warmth that benefits everyone involved. These simple exchanges often leave lasting impressions because they reflect authentic care. Finding joy in the ordinary also requires releasing comparisons. Social media and cultural narratives frequently portray idealized lifestyles, leading individuals to believe that their own lives are inadequate. This perception can diminish appreciation for what is already available. Buddhism encourages cultivating gratitude as an antidote to comparison. Reflecting on basic blessings, health, shelter, companionship, or opportunities for learning shifts attention from perceived deficiencies to existing abundance. Gratitude does not deny challenges but balances them with recognition of positive elements. This balanced awareness supports emotional resilience. Another important aspect of ordinary joy is the acceptance of imperfection. Many people postpone happiness until conditions become flawless. They wait for complete success, perfect relationships, or ideal circumstances. However, life rarely aligns perfectly with expectations. By embracing imperfection as part of reality, you allow joy to coexist with difficulty. Buddhism teaches that suffering often arises from resistance to what is. When you acknowledge both pleasant and unpleasant experiences without excessive judgment, you discover a sense of peace that transcends temporary fluctuations. Mindfulness meditation strengthens the ability to appreciate ordinary moments. By regularly practicing attention to breathing or bodily sensations, you train the mind to remain grounded in present experience. This training enhances sensitivity to subtle forms of joy, such as a feeling of calm after completing a task or the satisfaction of helping someone. Over time, mindfulness reduces the tendency to seek constant stimulation, making contentment more accessible. The mind becomes attuned to the quiet pleasures of daily life. Creativity and learning also flourish when ordinary experiences are valued. Routine activities often provide the mental space necessary for reflection and innovation. Many insights arise during simple tasks like walking or organizing when the mind is relaxed yet attentive. Buddhism recognizes that wisdom develops gradually through observation and contemplation. By treating everyday moments as opportunities for growth, you transform them into stepping stones toward deeper understanding. The psychological benefits of finding joy in the ordinary are significant. Reduced reliance on external excitement leads to lower stress and greater emotional stability. You become less vulnerable to disappointment because satisfaction is not tied exclusively to rare achievements. Instead, happiness emerges as a consistent background quality of life. This stability enhances confidence and encourages exploration, since fear of failure diminishes when self-worth is not dependent on extraordinary outcomes. Living with awareness of ordinary joy also fosters ethical responsibility. When you appreciate the interconnected nature of life, you become more mindful of how actions affect others and the environment. Simple choices, such as conserving resources or offering assistance, gain importance because they contribute to collective well-being. Buddhism teaches that small, consistent acts of goodness accumulate into meaningful change. By valuing everyday contributions, you participate actively in creating a compassionate society. The 16th lesson reminds you that the search for happiness does not require dramatic transformation. It begins with a shift in perception. By opening your senses and heart to the present moment, you uncover a reservoir of quiet joy that has always been available. This joy does not depend on wealth, status, or exceptional circumstances. It arises from the simple recognition that being alive is itself a remarkable experience. Ultimately, awakening to the ordinary reshapes your relationship with life. You learn to move through daily routines with curiosity and appreciation rather than impatience. Each moment becomes an invitation to connect, to learn, and to grow. Through consistent practice, this perspective transforms ordinary existence into a continuous source of meaning and fulfillment. As you reach the end of these lessons, it is important to understand that this is not the end of a journey. It is the quiet beginning of a new way of seeing, living, and experiencing life. Buddhism does not offer instant miracles or magical solutions. Instead, it offers something far more powerful, a gradual transformation of the mind, a transformation that happens through awareness, patience, and consistent practice. Throughout these teachings, you have discovered that happiness is not hidden in distant achievements or perfect circumstances. It is shaped by how you relate to your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, and the world around you. When you learn to stop fixing what is not broken, you begin to experience acceptance. When you allow pain to pass through you instead of becoming it, you discover resilience. When you give without expecting, you experience inner richness. When you sit in silence, you meet your true self. When you detach from outcomes and trust the process, you develop strength. When you forgive, you reclaim your peace. When you choose happiness in small moments, you realize that joy has always been close. These insights are not meant to be understood only intellectually. They are invitations to practice. Real change happens not in a single moment of inspiration, but in the quiet repetition of mindful actions. Each day offers countless opportunities to return to presence, to choose compassion, to simplify your life, to release control, and to appreciate the ordinary. Over time, these small shifts accumulate into profound inner freedom. You may still face challenges. Life will continue to bring uncertainty, loss, and change. Buddhism does not promise a life without difficulty. What it offers is the ability to meet difficulty with clarity instead of confusion, with patience instead of panic, and with wisdom instead of fear. This ability is the foundation of lasting peace. Remember that the path is not something you must search for in distant places. It is found in your own awareness, in the choices you make in ordinary moments, and in the kindness you extend to yourself and others. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be willing to learn and to continue walking. If these lessons resonated with you, allow them to guide your daily life. Start with one practice. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Observe your breath. Offer forgiveness. Perform a simple act of kindness. Notice one ordinary moment of beauty. Let these small steps become habits, and let those habits shape your character. True happiness is not a destination waiting at the end of effort. It is a way of living that unfolds with each conscious step you take. The more you practice awareness and compassion, the more natural peace becomes. The path is here. The moment is now. Walk it gently, walk it wisely, and most importantly, keep walking.